Okay, well, good evening and welcome everyone to the July 2021 Ordinary Council meeting of Dubbo Regional Council. I can advise that this meeting is being streamed live to the internet. All those present should therefore refrain from making any defamatory statements, and upon joining these online meetings you accept the condition that your image may be recorded and streamed to the internet, as well as being retained in the archive of the recorded council meetings and standing committee meetings. I now open the 26th July 2021 Ordinary Council meeting, the time being 5:31 p.m. First up is Councillor John Ryan with prayer and acknowledgement of country.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. O God, grant that by the knowledge of thy will, all we may resolve shall work together for good. We pray through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen. Acknowledgement of country. I would like to acknowledge the Wiradjuri people who are the traditional custodians of the land. I would also like to pay respect to the elders both past and present of the Wiradjuri nation and extend that respect to other Aboriginal people from other nations who are present.
I might just say at the outset, it was expected that this would be the final council meeting of the council term, but as most people are probably aware, the state government announced on the weekend that they were extending the term of council and that elections will now be held on the 4th of December. So we would expect to have possibly 4 future ordinary council meetings in this term of council. There's no leaves of absence, but we do have an announcement of a resignation of a councillor, and I might just hand to the CEO to make that announcement.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just advise Council that former Councillor Dane Gumley has tendered his resignation effective at 4:45 this afternoon, and accordingly won't be here participating in tonight's meeting. He'll formalise that through an email later this evening.
Certainly. Thank you, Mr Wood. Next is item 146, public forum, and we have quite a large number of members of the community here to speak. I might ask Miss Margaret McDonald to speak first. Understand Margaret will be speaking on the Consolidated Environmental Plan. Yes, thank you.
Will I leave my mask on? Okay. Mr Mayor, councillors, good evening, and members of the public forum. I'm here tonight to represent Dubbo Environment Group, and I wish to address the agenda item 75, the Consolidated Dubbo Regional Council Local Environment Plan for 2021. During the COVID lockdown of 2020, Dubbo Environment Group submitted in a council meeting public forum that Dubbo Regional Council needed to adopt a net zero emissions policy. In our submission, we wrote to each councillor listing the many compelling reasons covering economics, agriculture, business, climate, environment and international obligations as to why this was necessary. Our information was referenced by evidence from relative academic experts. Following this submission, Dubbo Environment Group met with Dubbo Regional Council Sustainability Officer, Katrina Jennings, whose advice was that we should submit our request at the next local environment plan consultation process. Staff member Nick Alat has informed us that this LNP plan is only at stage 1, where Wellington and Dubbo Shire's policies are brought together. We feel, however, that since the last LEP written was in 2011, we cannot wait to address the dangerous climate emergency, which is overwhelmingly accepted as occurring in 2021 throughout the world. Our reading of the draft LEP found only a cursory mention of climate change. A cursory mention is not good enough when urgent action is needed by every level of government in Australia. We believe the LEP should loudly promote a strong focus upon the efforts of our council to reduce emissions. The plan should list strategies which are specifically designed to reduce carbon emissions, and it should say that's why the strategies are there. It should say how council would work towards this goal, and it should specify the prospective term taken. Standing here, we all know that mayors and councillors come and go. If our council adopts a net zero emissions policy today, it will send not only a direction to staff decision makers, but a guideline and an obligation to act. Our group was heartened in 2020 to see this council become a member of the Cities Power Partnership. Can we please have visible evidence and communication of the strategies that council has adopted as a result of this partnership? Can we be told about the ideas you are sharing from our local government leaders? Our citizens need reassurance. They also need climate change education and an example to follow. Dubbo Environment Group submits for the second time in 2 years that Dubbo Regional Council adopts a net zero emissions policy. Thank you very much for the opportunity to express our concerns.
Thanks, Ms McDonald. And next up is Mr Chris Attenborough on the short-term rental accommodation item.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for giving us this opportunity to discuss this issue. The issue we want to discuss is item number CL21/165 on the agenda regarding short-term rental accommodation in the Dubbo LGA. We're seeking that the Dubbo Council overturn the recommendation that's been provided in your report that's asking Council to opt in for the 180-day limit on the short-term rental accommodation in the Dubbo Regional LGA. This is based on a number of concerns that we have and talking to other stakeholders as well. The major concerns, I suppose we'll summarise that first, is we feel the council assessment's been, we find it ill-conceived, and the recommendation that's been put forward, and this is due to a lack of public consultation or stakeholder consultation. My understanding, there was some pressure brought by the state government onto council staff to come forward with a recommendation in a short period of time. So that may explain part of the issue there. We also want to discuss the potential detrimental impacts that this policy may have on the Dubbo economy and into the future if it is adopted. So for your benefit, it's page 98 of the report anyway. But we reviewed that report and we've identified a few concerns with this recommendation of asking the council to opt into this short-term rental restriction. Number one being, as I discussed, there's been no public consultation or stakeholder consultation. It's been an internal decision that's been made by the looks of it. We think that's remiss. People should have been consulted who have interests. One of the outcomes of the report from council is saying they've based their decision based on previous complaints about short-term rental properties and their guests from the public complaining about the behaviour of guests in short-term rental properties. But that's a statement that's been included there. There's been no evidence provided to substantiate this claim. I don't really know where that information has come from. I can't seem to find anything when I do some research. And, I'd ask the question, how do these complaints differ from a long-term rental property anyway? If people are going to make complaints about the behaviour of tenants, be it on a short-term or long-term nature, there's no discussion of how they differentiate those complaints. And I'd also like to point out that all the short-term rental accommodation providers or the management companies have their own policies that are self-enforced, which are quite punitive on guests or actual owners of properties who offer their properties for short-term rental accommodation, where in instances guests are banned for 12 months or more anyway. So there's already a system in place that somewhat controls the behaviour of guests. Number 3, the point that's made in the council recommendation that Dubbo's already well serviced by motels. And I think this is where it sort of underscores the issue that the recommendation has been made without the proper appreciation of what these short-term rental properties bring to the market. People, particularly tourists, there's a small element, but a quite significant element of the market that doesn't want to stay in a motel, a hotel, etc. They want a bigger property. They want to bring a couple of families. And short-term rental accommodation generally fills that void for them. I've had people tell me that if that wasn't available in Dubbo, they wouldn't come to Dubbo. It's something that's attracting people out here and using our tourism facilities and actually investigating and looking around the area. I've had other accommodation providers in other towns saying that they're benefiting from the grey area at the moment, where people are thinking that they won't get the accommodation out here, so they're staying in the likes of Orange in these short-term rental properties and doing day trips to Dubbo, to the zoo, etc. Dubbo's missing out on that tourism dollar. Yeah, and as discussed, they're a completely different way of accommodating people. There's a bigger, it's a home, not a room, and people are demanding that in this day and age. Yep, righto. So just generally, we want it to be overturned based on those factors, the impacts it's going to have on the economy. And one of the biggest things that I note out of the report, that Dubbo is the only Western local government area that's decided to opt into this short-term rental accommodation policy. It's Newcastle, Sydney, down south Bega Valley, which has now opted back out, I believe, leaving Ballina and Byron Bay, where the issues have been identified with these types of properties. But we're losing tourism, we're losing dollars into the economy to Orange, Mudgee, Parks, who have, thought it's better just offer these properties up for all the tourism workers, etc., that they can accommodate. So,
thanks, Mr. Adam. I'll probably have to stop you there. You're a bit over the 5 minutes.
Right,
But thank you very
we'd
much.
like you
Got
to
the
have
message.
Thank you.
Certainly, thank you. Stephen Butcher on the independent investigator report. Is Mr. Butcher here? No, I think Mr. Butcher's not here. And next up is Miss Angela McAlpine, talking on the short-term rental accommodation.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen. I refer agenda item CCL 21165. I'd like to elaborate on the points Mr Attenborough has discussed and express my concerns about the 180-day limit that Dubbo City Council is looking to impose on short-term rental accommodation. Short-term accommodation has a positive impact economically for the region. The way we travel is changing. Recent research has shown an interesting trend in travellers' desire for boutique accommodation. The current COVID environment has seen an increase in the number of days people choose to stay in a location, flexible and remote working becoming the norm, and accommodation with room for the family to come for a longer stay to work whilst play, so to speak. The accommodation offering of traditional motel is less appealing and to this demographic. The number one tourist attracted to Dubbo, being the Dubbo Zoo, comes with it a large percentage of families with small children. Being a mother of small children myself, the idea of staying in a motel room as a family is not appealing. I'm sure many of you in this room will also agree. Families look for space, a backyard and family-friendly amenities when choosing a holiday destination. Dubbo currently has very few of these. STRA accommodation also caters for the travelling professional. Dubbo is developing at a rate of knots. Think hospital expansion, inland rail and the solar farm, just to name a few. Those travelling for work are often here for longer periods of time. They become stuck between a rock and a hard place, wishing to make a home away from home for themselves, their colleagues and their families, something the traditional accommodation sector can't offer. Limiting the STRA market will also deter investors. I myself am from Western New South Wales. Dubbo is my hub, it's my local, it's where I come for shopping, short breaks, work, medical and culture. I have investment properties in multiple locations across New South Wales, but the new rules are a huge deterrent to me and others in the same area who could just as easily adopt Orange or Mudgee as their local. My most recent acquisition was outside the Dubbo LGA for this very reason. SCRA hosts are passionate about supporting local business. They employ gardeners, cleaners, laundromats, tradespeople, as well as often shopping locally. SCRA owners love to promote the area. They increase the social media presence of a destination, in turn leveraging tourism and market. The Repose, Arthur, Macleay Cottage are all fabulous examples of this. Their reach and marketing presence is not to be overlooked. Short-term accommodation has a number of positive social impacts. These properties are extremely well looked after. They're presented beautifully. They have a lovely street presence and enhance the social environment of a city. The new mandatory code of conduct that comes with this is strict. The policies for both hosts and guests who do not comply with social safety standards, fire safety, noise and behaviour, those hosts and guests that do not comply are swiftly banned from doing so. And finally, travel to the regions are at an all-time high. STRA occupancy rates for the area in the last 12 months saw a 79% occupation rate. Current traditional accommodations are seeing even higher figures. The 2021 Tourism Market Report for Dubbo saw hotel occupancy rates at a staggering high of 90% in April this year. For the same pre-COVID periods, 2018 and 19, hotels were sitting in the mere 70s. Short-term accommodation rentals align with Council's CBD precinct plan. Where do the 10,000 people visiting Dubbo's new entertainment centre on the river stay when traditional venues are already at capacity? If Dubbo was to continue to adopt the 180-day ruling, where do travellers stay when hotels are hard to find as it is? I also ask, why is Dubbo Council the only LGA west of the mountains pursuing this policy? I briefly spoke with representatives in many neighbouring councils, such as Orange and Cambon, who confirmed they have no desire to engage in these limitations. Thank you.
Mayor, councillors and members of the public, thank you very much. I'm the advocate for Save Dubbo Sandy Beach, and on behalf of our community I want to say thank you, councillors, for listening to the voice of the people. Stating a south bridge through Sandy Beach will not be given further consideration. As a community advocate, I'm now seeking council's consideration and approval to permanently protect the council-owned parcel of land that is 24/754308. That borders Sandy Beach Road and South Street. Would like to have that protected from future development. This will ensure our pristine green space remains in place for future generations. The next thing I want to ask you about is questions from Council's July committee meeting outcomes report. The Balmoral Group stated they prefer bridge option 3. Given community consultation is yet to proceed, it would seem to be a conflict of interest to even state their preferred option. However, the meeting outcomes state the Balmoral Group determined that over a 30-year period, bridge option 3 was the most likely to maximise benefits. My question about is what research methods were implemented to determine over 30 years that option 3, bridge, would maximise what benefits and for whom? In addition, the report states Council investigate the costs associated with progressing detailed investigations, including further community consultation. Is this referring to option 3? Or is Council open to suggestions from the community? Lastly, I am requesting from Council the names of organisations who contributed to Council on the South Bridge proposal. Now, I don't know if that's possible, but the reason for my request is I created a very large database of organisations, writing to them personally, requesting they complete a submission to Council to save the Dubbo Sandy Beach. I would now like to be able to write and thank those people, but if I don't know who put the submissions in, then I can't just take a guess from my database or my Excel spreadsheet and say, oh, they did it, because I'd look pretty stupid if I did that. So that's why I'd like to ask that question, if that's possible. Thank you.
I'll take that on notice. Question, that is.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for your advocacy. Is Steve Butcher here? I think I called Mr Butcher earlier. I got a note that he might be here, but it doesn't seem like he is.
He was.
Yeah, he was outside. I wonder if a member of staff might just pop down while we hear Karina McLaughlin and see if Mr Butcher's there. But Miss McLaughlin is here to speak on the South Bridge issue. Yes, no, it's fine. You come now, Miss McLaughlin. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors, staff and members of the public. So I'm here tonight to talk about the credibility of the evidence that's in favour of the South Dubbo Bridge, as well as other council reports. So the draft Transportation Strategy 2020 by Chris Stapleton and the Health, Education and Wellbeing Precinct Master Plan, despite claiming that it consulted with New South Wales Health, both have a common flaw, and that is that threatens their accuracy, and that is the fact that they've both put a lot of their planning around the fact that there would be a rear entrance to Dubbo Hospital created, but they've obviously something's gone wrong, because it won't be. And I'll just read a letter from the Honorary Brad Hazard dated the 14th of December 2020. Dear Miss McLaughlin, thank you for your email about ambulance access to Dubbo Health Service during a flood. I acknowledge the concerns that have prompted you to write and commend your advocacy on behalf of your community. Mr Mark Spittle, Acting Chief Executive, Western New South Wales Local Health District, has advised that ambulances have a dedicated access to Dubbo Health Service via Miles Street, and it is not flood prone. It was not identified as an issue during the Dubbo Health Service redevelopment planning. Mr Spittle has also confirmed that access to the new Dubbo Health Service car parks will continue to be via front entrance in Miles Street and not the rear of the hospital. The River Street Bridge project, which you mentioned in your email, is not part of the Dubbo Health infrastructure nor Dubbo Health Service redevelopment projects, and therefore you would be best placed to contact the relevant authority, blah, 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 blah. So, although Mr Dougal Saunders MP has been bragging that the River Street Bridge would be used by ambulances, visitors, staff and patients going to the hospital, it won't be. And in fact, in the Stapleton report, it has repeated that unfortunate inaccuracy. And so we have biased modelling for the River Street Bridge, where in 2055, Chris Stapleton has suggested that there will be 12,500 crossings per day of the River Street Bridge, based on the fact that 18% of employment in the Health Education Precinct would be using that bridge and not the Cerezier, but unfortunately that's not correct. So demand for the River Street Bridge is obviously going to be much lower than what is predicted in the Stapleton report. Also, there's biased modelling for the South Dubbo Bridge in the Stapleton report, and that's because all modelling done for future demand of the South Dubbo Bridge was done only under the assumption that there'd be no Newell Highway bypass for 35 years. So if there was a bypass, as I mentioned at the public consultation with the Council on the 25th of November 2020, it would provide another route for locals in southwest Dubbo to take to work or school, avoiding Willandra Street altogether. This is because no matter which of the bypass routes you look at, Gary Braithwaite's, Alan Murphy's or John Morris's, they all have an interlink at Manor Road. So I mentioned this at the public consultation, but unfortunately that suggestion doesn't seem to have made it into the report back to the council. So although it did say that people mentioned the ring road. What I wanted to know was why was there such resistance to gathering evidence on Troy Bridge and a bypass, and how much local traffic as well as highway traffic it would take off of Wylandra Street. So also other suggestions that I made and others made at that consultation was that people suggested that they do a consultation with parents who drive their children to school to find out what their motivation is and whether they can be encouraged to send their children in other ways, and also the fact that local cycling tracks...
I think we're pretty close to 5 minutes, Ms McLaughlin, so please finish, but yeah, you'll have to wrap it up pretty quickly.
Okay, I'll just finish my sentence if that's okay. So, also, cycling tracks are in Dubbo mostly designed for leisure and recreation, and they're not cycling is not considered a valid way of getting to and from work or school, and planning needs to be done. So if those things were taken into account, it probably would reduce a lot of the local traffic.
This is a very long sentence, Ms McLaughlin.
Okay, thank you.
I'll unfortunately have to call an adjournment. I'm told by staff the audio for the online broadcast is not working properly, so we'll just adjourn the meeting and hopefully sort out that technicality. But I thank all the speakers in public forum. Okay, well, welcome back to the ordinary July Council meeting. We are having a problem with the audio and getting reports that people online can't hear the meeting. We're having some technical staff attend to that. So what we're proposing to do is bring forward Committee of the Whole and move into confidential session to consider those matters, and then come back into ordinary council. Hopefully by that time the audio problems will be fixed. I'm not sure if anyone out there in internet land has heard what I just said, but we thought that we would announce it anyway. Can I have someone move that we move into Committee of the Whole? Thanks, Councillor Jones, and seconded by Councillor Diffie. I'll put that. All those in favour? Against? I declare it carried, and we'll move into Committee of the Whole and cease the live streaming. Okay, well, I'll recommence the July ordinary meeting of Council, the time being 6:46 p.m. Can I apologise to everyone viewing? We've had audio problems. We think that they are now resolved. We hope that they are now resolved. In the interim, we haven't proceeded with much of the agenda of the ordinary council meeting. We decided, given the audio problems, to go into Committee of the Whole, which we normally would have done it at the end of the meeting. And we decided to bring it forward, and I'll therefore ask the Governance and Internal Control Manager to read the report of the Committee of the Whole.
Item CW 21/13, 1, that the information contained within the report of the Chief Executive Officer dated 26 July 2021 be noted. 2, that the Chief Executive Officer implement the following recommendations of the independent investigator: that A, Council adopts a checklist for the initial triage of Code of Conduct complaints. B, Council ensures Code of Conduct complaints are dealt with only by authorised persons. C, the role of the Internal Ombudsman is limited to that permitted by the procedures. D, Council ensures that preliminary assessments and investigations are not carried out by any person directly employed by Council. E, Council undertakes additional training of Council staff as to the recording, triage, preliminary assessment, investigation and resolution stages of handling a Code of Conduct complaint. F, Council provides a structured process through which Council staff can make a Code of Conduct complaint, including anonymously. G, Council reinforces the obligation of councillors and Council staff not to engage in inappropriate interactions in relation to Council business, open bracket, including complaint handling, close bracket. H, where inappropriate interactions are reported, deal with those matters as alleged serious breaches of Council's Code of Conduct. 3, that it be noted that the Chief Executive Officer is obliged to refer any findings of alleged misconduct relating to former councillors and former staff to the Office of Local Government and other relevant agencies for their consideration. 4, Council notes its desire to publicly release the full independent investigator report and notes the strong public interest in the community understanding and rationale for the recommendations and the findings made. 5, Council requests further specialist legal advice to be obtained regarding in regards to making available to the public the independent investigation report, ensuring Council meets its procedural fairness and legislative obligations. 6. Council requests a workshop of councillors be held once the specialist legal advice is obtained. 7. Council requests a report to be brought to the September meeting of Council addressing the question of whether the report can be made public. Item CW 21/14. 1. That the report of the Manager, Property and Land Development, dated 2 July 2021 be noted. 2. That Council agree to purchase 10 Montefiore Street, Montefiores on the key terms. A. Purchase price $240,000, open bracket, including GST if applicable. B. Deposit at $10,000. C. Settlement date 30 days from contract date. And D. Legal costs, each party to pay their own legal costs. 3. That upon acquisition of 10 Montefiore Street, Montefiores, Council A. classifies the property as operational land pursuant to Section 31 of the Local Government Act 1993, New South Wales. B. At its own costs. B1. Establish an easement for rights of access and easement for services over 10 Montefiore Street, Montefiores in favour of 8A Montefiore Street, Montefiores. B2. Facilitate the removal of the easement for right of carriageway over the title to 8 Montefiore Street, Montefiores. And B3, facilitate the amendment of the easement for services over the title to 8 Montefiore Street, Montefiores. 4, that the Chief Executive Officer be authorised to negotiate and finalise all matters relating to this report. 5, that all documentation in relation to this matter be executed under power of attorney. 6, that the documents and considerations in relation to this matter remain confidential to Council. Item CW 21/15, the tender for construction of culvert Stage 3 Old Mendurham Road, Dubbo. 1, that in accordance with Clause 178(1)(b) of the Local Government General Regulation 2005, Council declined to accept any tenders received for T21-023, construction of culvert for Old Mendurham Road, Stage 3, as the tenders received are non-conforming. 2, that in accordance with Clause 178(3)(e) of the Local Government General Regulations 2005, Council enter into negotiations with DC Civil Enterprises Proprietary Limited. 3, that Council not invite fresh tenders for the construction of the culverts in Old Mendurham Road, Stage 3, as a new tender process is unlikely to provide a better result for Council. 4, that in accordance with Clause 178(4)(b) of the Local Government General Regulations 2005, DC Civil Enterprises Proprietary Limited provide the lowest competitive price and demonstrated delivery of the project in accordance to the scope of works within the scheduled time. 5, that the documents and considerations in relation to this matter remain confidential to Council.
Thanks, Ms Roust. Can I have a mover and a seconder for the report of Committee of the Whole? Thanks, Councillor Jones. Seconded, Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Grant, would you like to declare something?
Thank you, Mr Chair. In regards to the matter CW 2114, the Montefiore, number 8 and 10 Montefiore Street, I just wanted to declare a non-pecuniary and less than significant interest in the matter. I own a house in the Montefiore estate, but it is a significant distance from the property that's in this item, and I can't see any foreseeable benefit to my property with this motion moving forward. So that's why I'm just declaring a non-pecuniary but less than significant. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor.
And I'll stay in the room, sorry.
Any other questions or debate, councillors? Yeah. I think I'll need a mover and a seconder for that. Thanks, Councillor Diffie. Thanks, Councillor Etheridge. So questions or debate, councillors? I'll just speak to the report from Committee of the Whole briefly, or fairly briefly. There's obviously a lot of community interest in the independent investigator item. Councillors have spent a number of hours this afternoon having briefings on the independent investigation report. We've heard from one of the investigators himself. I might just explain some things now about the purpose of the inquiry. The purpose of the independent investigation was to look into how council's code of conduct has been administered over the term of council. As people will be aware, councillors in New South Wales are subject to a very strict regime of behaviour. Every council in New South Wales has to pass a code of conduct. It's based on a model code of conduct that is created by the state government and actually has legal force under the Local Government Act. Sets down incredibly strict rules about councillors' conduct. It prohibits us, for example, from engaging in abuse of power, engaging in conflict of interest, engaging in harassment and sexual harassment, engaging in bullying, engaging in all of those things that the community certainly expects that councillors do not do. We had very significant concerns raised in the community about the administration of our code of conduct. We had our local MP, not least Dougal Saunders, raise real concerns about whether our code of conduct procedures had been undermined and not administered properly. Those were incredibly serious matters that were, I'm sure, of grave concern to all councillors. We are elected by the community to serve the community in the public interest. The way that we are held to account to our obligations is through the code of conduct process. That's how the community can have confidence that councillors are doing the right thing and have confidence that allegations of misconduct will be dealt with properly. So any matter that pertains to the proper administration of the code of conduct of Dubbo Regional Council is incredibly serious by its nature, and I know that all councillors take it extremely seriously. So in the face of those allegations effectively of maladministration of the code of conduct, we resolved at meetings previous to hire an independent investigator to examine our code of conduct procedures. The advice was very clear. We could not hire someone to inquire into allegations against any individual councillor. This report was never about inquiring into and deciding on allegations of misconduct against individual councillors. The advice was that we could not do that as a matter of law. It would have been quite wrong for us to set up some sort of parallel process that inquired into allegations of wrongdoing against any councillor. Rather, we could only look into process. Have the proper processes been followed in relation to allegations of misconduct against councillors and council staff over the term of council? We hired Pinnacle Integrity, a very reputable and long-standing firm with a lot of experience in local government matters and with personnel with extensive experience in policing and anti-corruption measures. They have prepared a report for us that looks into the administration of our code of conduct, looks into whether allegations brought by community members over the term of council were dealt with according to what is in effect law. A large number of recommendations have been made and we passed them in Committee of the Whole. They include that council ensures code of conduct complaints are dealt with only by authorised persons. Our procedures code, which accompanies our code of conduct, is very clear as to who has the authority to deal with a code of conduct complaint. And I think people will understand well why that is so. It is important that only people in particular positions of authority are given particular responsibilities. That's particularly so, I think the community will understand, in the context of an organisation that consists at its top of elected officials, people of power and influence by the very nature of their role. A finding has been made of evidence suggesting that code of conduct complaints have been dealt with by non-authorised persons. That is a very serious matter. A further recommendation is that the role of the internal ombudsman is limited to that permitted by the procedures. And people who are familiar with the procedures will understand that the internal ombudsman plays a very important role at Dubbo Regional Council. Their proper role under the code is limited to an administrative one, to assisting in the process, for example, of referring code of conduct complaints to external assessors. A key part of the code of conduct is the provision for external assessment of code of conduct allegations. And I think the community will understand well why that is so. It is necessary when allegations are made against an elected official that a properly independent and external person deals with the investigation of such a matter. There has been a finding made of evidence that the internal ombudsman has not played the role prescribed under the code. Again, as I said, in respect of the authorised persons issue, that is a very serious matter. All matters that go to the administration of the code in a proper way are serious. A further recommendation that we have adopted in Committee of the Whole is that Council ensures that preliminary assessments and investigations are not carried out by any person directly employed by Council. That's a related recommendation to the earlier one. It is a central part of the Code of Conduct that there is independence and an external role played in relation to the assessment, the preliminary assessment and investigations of alleged breaches of the Code of Conduct. That part of the code is a guarantee to the community of the proper and independent assessments of allegations of wrongdoing against elected officials. It speaks for itself as to why that is so incredibly important. A further recommendation is that Council undertakes additional training of Council staff as to the recording, triage, preliminary assessment, investigation and resolution stages of handling of Code of Conduct complaints. I think the recommendations speak for why that is obviously an important matter. A further recommendation is that Council provides a structured process through which Council staff can make a Code of Conduct complaint, including anonymously. And I think, again, that speaks for itself as an appropriate measure. A further recommendation is that Council reinforces the obligations of councillors and Council staff not to engage in inappropriate interactions in relation to Council business, including complaint handling. I think councillors in the community will well understand why councillors should not be involving themselves in the progress and handling of Code of Conduct complaints. We as elected officials should be totally separate from such business. A further recommendation is that where inappropriate interactions are reported, that Council should deal with those matters as alleged serious breaches of Council's Code of Conduct. The reason why that recommendation has been made is that the independent investigator has made findings of evidence suggesting that inappropriate interactions have been reported that were alleged serious breaches of Council's Code of Conduct and were not dealt with in that way. I'm sure councillors in the community will understand the way that all of these recommendations and findings relate to each other. Non-authorised people making decisions about Code of Conduct complaints. Code of Conduct complaints being terminated or concluding not in the authorised way, and meaning that, quote, serious breaches of Council's Code of Conduct alleged have not been dealt with as such. A further recommendation of Council staff, which we have passed in Committee of the Whole, is that it be noted that the CEO is obliged to refer any findings of alleged misconduct relating to former councillors and former staff to the Office of Local Government and other relevant agencies for their consideration. As I said at the beginning, it was never and could not have been the role of this investigation to determine individual allegations of misconduct against councillors or former councillors or staff. There are processes for that. Where appropriate, those processes will be, I am sure, invoked. We can have full confidence that our CEO will refer to the Office of Local Government and other external agencies any serious allegations of misconduct that have arisen to the attention of the investigators in the course of their investigation. If anyone is suggesting that anybody has been cleared by this inquiry, by this investigation, they are misrepresenting the truth and they are misrepresenting the purpose of this inquiry. This inquiry or investigation, as I've said, was not lawfully able to examine allegations of misconduct. Such things are dealt with through code of conduct processes or through external agencies that might, for example, include the police or ICAC and so forth. I think it's really important in the context of everything that has occurred over recent months that the community well understand that it is not possible for anyone to truthfully say that this report clears anybody. It was not the purpose of this report. The findings of this report are grave. The findings of this report are incredibly serious. For a council to be resolving to accept recommendations such as only authorised people shall deal with code of conduct complaints, serious matters should be dealt with under the code of conduct, speaks volumes about serious systemic failures. However, on a brighter front, we councillors have dealt with these issues to a very significant extent. The independent investigator's report was an incredibly important step on getting our complaint processes back on track, which makes us properly accountable to the community in the discharge of our incredibly important responsibilities. So I want to commend all councillors for their support on that project. Any further questions or debate, councillors? Thanks, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'd just like to say that I'm in complete support of everything you've said. I'd like to commend the investigators. They're people of great experience across a number of sectors, and I was really heartened when we had our briefing today. And what really heartened me was the fact that we have had some systemic failures. They were things that were unknown to us, or many of us, and what really heartened me is the fact that with those recommendations, I believe this council is completely on the right track. And I think ratepayers of Dubbo can rest assured that good things are going to come out of this. There will be a lot of information that is made available in the future. I understand there's incredible community interest to get more information. We are trying, we are doing our best. We have to make sure that the organisation is not held liable for any information we release, and we are seeking specialist expert legal advice on that. But I'd just like to congratulate the investigators from Pinnacle Integrity and the staff and the CEO for getting us to this point, and yourself. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Any other questions or debate on the report of Committee of the Whole? I'll put that then. All those in favour and against, I declare it carried. So that takes us back almost to the beginning to confirmation of minutes of the previous council meeting, item 147. Can I have someone move that the minutes be accepted? Thanks, Councillor Grant, and a seconder. Thanks, Councillor Ryan. Any questions or debate, councillors? All those in favour? Against? I declare it carried. That brings us to the first of the mayoral minutes. And the first one is item 148, mayoral appointments. I'll move that. Any questions or debate, councillors? And I'll need a seconder, actually. Thanks, Councillor Diffie. Any questions or debate on that? I'll put that then. All those in favour? Against? I declare it carried. That brings us to item 149, the acknowledgement of Superintendent McKenna, District Commander formerly of the Arana Mid-Western Police District, and his service to the Dubbo local government area. On behalf of Dubbo Regional Council, I wish to acknowledge the service of Superintendent McKenna to communities in the Dubbo local government area. Superintendent McKenna completed his last day as District Commander of our region on 25 June 2021. He's been promoted to Assistant Commissioner of the Northern Region Commander area based in Newcastle, and I congratulate him on that. Peter has been in Dubbo since December of 2017, following the first amalgamation of local area commands. Peter was responsible for forming large proactive crime teams, a drug unit and bike squads. Peter also established the Aboriginal youth team under the Walway program, which has been an incredibly successful police-led and community-supported program. It's one of the significant reasons why I wanted to bring this mayoral minute, because I think when people go beyond the scope of their duties as stated and do something particularly special, important and effective, I think it should be acknowledged. Peter has also managed the dismantling of a major ice supply network during his tenure in Dubbo and was invaluable in the recent $800,000 upgrade of Council's CCTV system. Dubbo Regional Council's Community Services team worked closely with Superintendent McKenna on a number of projects and assisted in creating key partnerships between community services and police. This has greatly assisted in the creation and ongoing operation of Project Walway, with Peter personally advising that it would not have happened if the key partnerships with council and community didn't exist. He truly has built on a whole array of ongoing work and been incredibly effective in doing so. The program involved engaging 25 young Indigenous people entrenched in the criminal justice system through sport and cultural activities. Charges laid against young Indigenous people had dropped by 65% since the program's inception. I think councillors will well understand why we should acknowledge Peter McKenna and this work, given how it dovetails with our own social priorities. Peter also initiated a partnership with Council, PCYC and the police to open the Dubbo Aquatic Leisure Centre throughout the hotter summer period on Friday nights to keep young people engaged in what is typically a period of high youth crime. Simple but effective measures. Following this successful partnership, a further partnership was developed between police and the Dubbo Aquatic Leisure Centre, which assisted in positive engagement of the new staff with Aboriginal young persons. This engagement then led to Aboriginal young persons from Project Walway being trained as lifeguards prior to the end of the swimming season, with the intention of casual employment for them. The course was paid for by Council through funding held by the Community Services Team for Aboriginal Youth Leadership Opportunities. Peter was instrumental, as I've said, during the consultation phase of the recent $800,000 upgrade of our CCTV system. Our Community Services team worked with Peter and his team to identify crime hotspots and appropriate placements along with the required technology to ensure the efficient and effective operation of the new system. During the consultation with service providers for the establishment of a drug and alcohol rehabilitation facility for the Dubbo Regional Council area, Peter and his team provided invaluable insights and commentary to council staff for the preparation of the business case. I wish to offer my truly sincere thanks to Peter for his service and innovative ideas, along with his efforts in working with the disadvantaged and disengaged groups within the many communities of the Dubbo Regional Council area. Any further questions or debate, councillors? Thanks, Councillor Ryan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. It's pretty incredible. A mate of mine served with Peter McKenna before he came to Dubbo, and Peter McKenna came here as an inspector, was promoted into the superintendent's role, and 3.5 years later he's leaving as an assistant commissioner. So it's pretty well known in the COPS that if you can do well in Dubbo, it is a road to rapid promotion, and the reason it is because Dubbo is a very difficult area to police. Peter McKenna was able to walk that difficult tightrope of having the sort of tough guy image. He could be hard when he had to be, but he understood that compassion and vision was where we need to go. So it's an unusual mix, and I just hope that the police force is searching very diligently, as I've been told they are, for a replacement who can ensure we continue moving forward. I've done stories on Project Walway. I've been at the PCYC on Friday night. the dedication and passion and enthusiasm from all the people involved is amazing, and it just shows you the difference that really solid visionary leadership can make in those crucial positions. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ryan. Any other questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour and against, I declare it carried. That brings us to the next mayoral minute, greater collaboration with neighbouring councils, item 150. I'll move that. Have we got a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Jones. I'll speak to that. Dubbo is the hub of Western New South Wales, providing goods and services for 130,000 people around our wider region and benefiting economically for the role we play. To ensure we continue to be a leader in that space, we need to ensure our communication and collaboration with neighbouring councils is second to none. Unfortunately, at a council level, this communication and collaboration has reached a low point, and that is not to speak to the very extensive staff level collaboration that goes on. That is certainly occurring, and it's effective and it's important. However, currently there is virtually no formal collaboration between us and other councils in the Orana and Far West region. The ability to share knowledge and resources and combine to lobby governments on issues that affect the entire region is critical and needs to be restored as a matter of priority. It is my desire and that of other mayors and general managers in the Orana and Far West region to create a forum for all matters to be raised and addressed. Until 2018, Dubbo Regional Council was part of the Orana Regional Organisation of Councils, known as OROC, with 11 other councils. Narromine, Midwestern, Narromine Shire, Bogan Shire, I've said Narromine twice, Warrumbungle Shire, Warren Shire, Berkshire, Cobar Shire, Walgett Shire, Canamble Shire and Warren Shire councils. When that organisation was dissolved, Council considered but ultimately declined to be part of the Orana Joint Organisation. This meant that we lost our communication channel with 11 other councils. During the severe and long-lasting drought of 2018-19, this was a detriment when it came to liaising with the state and federal governments and working together to find solutions to water security. In April 2020, as councillors will recall, this council considered joining the Orana JO, but in a tight vote it was decided not to join. It's my concern that we aren't fulfilling our regional leadership obligation as things stand. I base that comment, I should say, on extensive discussions with other local government leaders in our area. As the hub of Western New South Wales, we have an obligation to assist our residents and those in nearby communities. It is in the interest of all parties that an organisation is created as a priority to allow councils to work together. That is why I'm recommending that Dubbo Regional Council work with other councils in the region to restore communication and collaboration. Any questions or debate, councillors, on the mayoral minute? Thanks, Councillor Diffie.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I support your mayoral minute. I think that's fantastic. I was a supporter of the Orana JO, and I think it probably could have been a very different outcome for the Orana JO, perhaps if Dubbo had been there at the table from the very beginning. But I think it's important that we have that collaboration with the other councils. We are one of the major key players in local government area in this area, so congratulations on the mayoral minute.
Any other questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour and against, I declare it carried. That brings us to the next mayoral minute, not the last one. Item 141 on the Reconciliation Action Plan. I'll move that. Have I got a seconder for that mayoral minute? Thanks, Councillor Ryan. I'll just speak to that. Councillors will recall that on 11 March of 2020, I prepared a notice of motion which was ultimately passed on the 23rd of March 2020, which created our Aboriginal electoral enrolment and engagement strategy. A fourth part of that motion, however, was asking the CEO to report back at the April meeting on steps previously taken towards Dubbo Regional Council developing an Aboriginal employment policy and a reconciliation action plan and an Aboriginal procurement policy. We've achieved certain of those, but we haven't yet achieved a RAP, or Reconciliation Action Plan, as they're known. So point 4 in that motion was never ultimately implemented. This is understandable, perhaps, given the disruption to council and the community due to the pandemic and various other workload issues. there was reprioritisation of services and so forth to ensure that the community did not suffer. Our region, of course, has a large Aboriginal community. It is therefore imperative that Council acknowledge and contribute towards reconciliation with this large section of our community. Recent innovative achievements by Council highlight the positive work undertaken for and with the Aboriginal community. The Dubbo Regional Council Aboriginal Electoral Engagement Strategy 2021 and the Aboriginal Employment Strategy are the most recent examples of the Council's approach to achieving positive outcomes with the Aboriginal community. In my view, developing a RAP, or Reconciliation Action Plan, will contribute to reconciliation by building and encouraging relationships. It will foster and embed respect and develop opportunities by Council to improve outcomes for Aboriginal communities. By developing a RAP, Council can implement practical actions towards reconciliation through a community consultant framework. We can develop and build a more diverse workforce, enable staff to develop greater cultural awareness and ensure more effective service delivery to the Aboriginal community. Therefore, I do hope that councillors will support the minute asking the CEO to provide options for the development of a RAP for our local government area. The plan, of course, should be reflective of community expectations of how council should build and encourage relationships, develop respect and opportunities with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Any questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour and against, I declare it carried. That brings us to the last of the mayoral minutes, which was a late one, so it's not in the agenda papers, but it's fairly procedural. Item 151A, determination of dates and times of meetings due to postponement of the local government elections. So this is effectively changing the schedule of meetings that council, I think, set at the beginning of the term. We may have changed it at different points. To accommodate for the fact that the local government elections have been delayed until December. So I'll move that. Have we got a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Jones. Any questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then, if everyone's ready. Sorry, Councillor Ryan. Oh, okay. I'll put it. All those in favour? Against? I declare it carried. Yep, very good. That brings us to item 152, report of the Development and Environment Committee meeting of 12 July 2021. Can I have someone move that the minutes be noted? Thanks, Councillor Diffie. Seconded, Councillor Parker. Any questions or debate? I'll put that then. All those in favour? Against? I declare it carried. That brings us to the report of the Infrastructure and Livability Committee, item 153, the meeting of 12 July 2021. Can I have someone please move that and second it? Thanks, Councillor Etheridge and Councillor Ryan. Any questions or debate? I'll put that then. All those in favour? Against? I declare it carried. That brings us to the last of the minute items, item 154, report of the Culture, Economy and Corporate Committee meeting of 12 July. Can I have someone move that? Thanks, Councillor Jones, and seconded by Councillor Etheridge. Any questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour? Against? I declare it carried. That brings us to notices of motion. The first one is on the recreational lake concept, item 155. Councillor Ryan, would you like to move your notice of motion? Thanks, Councillor Ryan. Have we got a seconder for that? Thanks, Councillor Parker. Councillor Ryan, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, very briefly. Thank you, Mr Mayor. Before and during this term of council, I've had a lot of people tell me they'd like a lake in Dubbo. There are some naysayers. We've got the 1 to 200 rusted on Facebook experts, but we're one of the hottest, if not the hottest, regional cities in New South Wales. Many small towns such as Condobolin, Temora, Chirildiri, Narrabri, Moree, Gundawindi have built lakes. They've built lakes in different ways and for different reasons. Condobolin spent years running a summer B&S ball, to which I contributed rather heavily for a long period of time, to build a lake. It was so successful they doubled it. Gundawindi has built a lake, and it was, I believe, mostly paid for by a residential subdivision on the back of it, or it's more a ski run. So there can be small lakes for passive recreation, to dip your feet in the warm weather, or to sail or to row. There can be bigger type lakes where you've got ski boats or channel areas where you can ski. I grew up in Shepparton in Victoria. There's a man-made lake in the main street. On a hot summer night, you could find 4,000 or 5,000 people down there. I think this is something that we need council staff to investigate, to look at where it could potentially be, ways of potentially doing it. Just put the issue out there once and for all, and then the community can give their feedback and the people can say what they want. Once we know what or if they want, then we can, whoever's in the council can work it out from there. But I strongly recommend this to my fellow councillors. All we're doing is empowering the staff to look into this and to develop a paper so people can see what potential direction we can go in. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ryan. Any other questions or debate, councillors? Thanks, Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, yeah, I supported Councillor Ryan's motion there, obviously because he's done a fair bit of homework on it, but just have to reiterate that this has been looked at on several occasions before and certainly come up as not being feasible, but given the way the motion is worded, let's have another look at it and we'll move from there.
Other questions or debate? Thanks, Councillor Diffie.
I'd have to say, Mr Mayor, that when I first read this motion, I thought that perhaps Councillor Ryan was just going out with a bang, given this was going to be our last meeting, and he was just revisiting his election commitments.
Now he's got to stick around and deal with it.
Yeah, I'm not overly excited about the idea of a lake. I think there's probably other things that we could be looking at spending money on. But given that this is council consulting with the community and just considering the development of a recreational lake, then I'm happy to support the motion.
Any other questions or debates? I'll just speak to it briefly. Oh, sorry, Councillor Ryan, did you have something?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, just a couple of things. One thing about a lake is it not only is great to boost visitation, it's also great for the people who live here. So you're killing two birds with one stone. The other thing about it, this could potentially be revenue neutral. If somebody came to council with a proposal and said, look, I'll build a lake, but I want to put a residential subdivision on it, that will pay for it. I've talked to any number of young tradies who have told me that they would love to have a block of land on a lake so they could get home from work after starting at 5 o'clock, working through the heat of the day and going skiing. That is a priority for a lot of people. If a lake was built that way, it would actually cost the people of Dubbo nothing. So I'm not suggesting that council goes out and spends money. I'm purely suggesting we look at everything and we look at ways in which potentially a private developer could do this. There are lots of farmers out west, cotton growers and irrigators, and they've got 50-acre dams. They've got their own lakes that they ski on. And I think if a single farming family out west can have a lake, why are we denying it to 40,000 people? If a town like Jerilderie can build their own lake, if a town like Temora can build their own lake, if a town like Condobolin and Gundawindi can build their own lake, I think it's actually quite shameful that we don't have one.
Thanks, Councillor Ryan. Any other questions or debate, councillors? I'll just speak to it briefly. Yeah, look, I'm really supportive of this notice of motion, and it obviously asks for council to consider the matter in the context of strategic plans that will be decided upon by the next council next year. So it will be fundamentally a matter for the next council, but it will start a process of staff considering options for it. And look, I'm certainly aware, to the best of my memory anyway, that as part of the Regan Park Master Plan, there was a proposal there for a lake of sorts, and for a proposal where the water would flow through marshes and so forth and be sort of cleaned in that process and then end up in a lake there. So the idea of a recreational lake in Dubbo, I think, is a sound one, but it will all depend on questions of size and scope and so forth, and feasibility and money. And, you know, the things that Councillor Ryan has raised about the financing of it are interesting and innovative, and I would certainly commend the next council to look at it as part of those considerations. But yeah, supporting it tonight certainly doesn't bind council to go and build a lake tomorrow. It's just getting the matter on the agenda for it to be considered by the next council. So, look, I'll certainly be supporting it. Any other questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour and against, I declare it carried. The next notice of motion is Councillor Ryan's item 156, Emerging Events and Community Events Program. Councillor Ryan, would you like to move your notice of motion? Have we got a seconder for that? Thanks, Councillor Jones. Councillor Ryan, do you want to speak to that?
Yes, and really briefly this time, Mr Mayor. Some groups, in particular the bike rally, they went through a process and we awarded them some funds to run the bike rally. When they did it a couple of years ago, it was incredibly successful. It was done on a shoestring by a volunteer committee of 6 people. Thank you. Sorry, and I'm actually presenting an alternate motion, Mr Mayor. One, that the assessment criteria for applications to destination, emerging and community event funding programs include a weighting of 20% for any cancelled events from the 2020-21 financial year. Point 2, that organisers of cancelled events be invited to resubmit applications to the emerging and community events programs.
Any other questions or debate, councillors, on that? Oh, sorry, didn't we? Okay. Can I have a seconder for the...
That wasn't an amendment, that was an alternate motion.
Alternative motion. So I'll take the seconder, which I think was Councillor Jones, as the seconder for the alternate motion. Thanks, Councillor Moore. We've had our questions or debate, I think. I'll put that then. All those in favour and against, I declare it carried. That brings us to a notice of motion of rescission, 157, temporary policy pending code of conduct processes upon the Mayor's return to official duties. So this is effectively a bit of housekeeping in relation to implementing the performance improvement order, because this was a policy that I created to regulate the former Mayor's conduct on his return to duties, and it brought about a change to the policy for entitlements and expenses. So it's necessary to pass a notice of rescission on the advice we have to be compliant with the PIO. I just might ask the CEO if that's a fair summary of the purpose of this.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, it's an administrative tidy-up in that regard, and directly relevant to the conditions of the performance improvement order.
Certainly, thank you. Can I have a mover for that? Thanks, Councillor Jones, seconded by Councillor Etheridge. Any questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour and against, I declare it carried. This brings us to another item that relates to our performance improvement order. Item 158, Draft Council Policy, Councillor and Staff Interaction. Can I have someone move the report of the CEO? Thanks, Councillor Diffie, and a seconder, Councillor Ryan, thank you. Any questions or debate, councillors? Yeah, look, I just want to thank the staff for their work on this. It was something that flows, as I said, out of the performance improvement order and the perceived need to have a policy that governs interactions between councillors and staff, including in relation to requests for information. So continuing in the spirit of compliance with the performance improvement order that we have demonstrated to date, I certainly commend it to councillors. Any other questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour and against, I declare it carried. That brings us to item 159, fees and charges. Can I have someone move the report of the Chief Financial Officer? Thanks, Councillor Ryan, and seconded by Councillor Diffie. Any questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour and against, I declare it carried. This brings us to item 160, Local Purchasing Policy Progress Report. Can I have someone move the report of the Acting Corporate Procurement Specialist? Thanks, Councillor Ryan, seconded Councillor Parker. Any questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour and against, I declare it carried. That brings us to item 161, Road Closure and Disposal Agreement, Lot 2000, DP 1269394, Badangra, Wellington North Solar Farm. Can I have someone move the report of the Property Development Officer? Thanks, Councillor Diffie. Seconded, Councillor Etheridge. Any questions or debate, councillors? Thanks, Councillor Grant. Sorry, Councillor Jones first. Okay, I think there might be an interest to declare. Okay, thank you. We'll take Councillor Jones first.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I need to declare a non-significant interest in this item. The developer of the Wellington North Solar Farm, CWP, are currently assessing my property in regards to the Spices Creek Solar Farm. So therefore, I see that as non-significant at this time, and I'll stay in the room.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. And Councillor Grant, do you have something for us?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I will be declaring a pecuniary significant interest in this matter. I have business dealings with the neighbour of the subject property who have agreed to purchase the land in question, so I will be leaving the room on this matter.
Thanks, Councillor Grant. So you had a move and a second of that, didn't you?
Susan, you've got a mover and second.
Yep. Yeah, okay, thank you. Any questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour and against, I declare it carried. Can we have Councillor Grant? Thanks, Councillor Grant. That brings us to item 162, planning proposal to amend Wellington Local Environmental Plan 2012 minimum lot size controls at 300 Nanama Village Road, Wellington. Can I please have someone move the report of the Senior Growth Planner? Thanks, Councillor Jones, and seconded Councillor Ryan. Any questions or debate, councillors? In that case, I'll put it. All those in favour and against, I declare it carried. That brings us to 163, reports of public exhibition Keswick RSL planning proposal. Can I please have someone move the report of the growth planning projects leader Digital Futures? Thanks, Councillor Grant. Seconded, Councillor Parker.
I've got to declare an interest.
Yep, certainly the CEO wants to declare an interest.
Wish to declare a significant pecuniary interest as I have a residential house in the Keswick estate, and I'll leave the room while this matter is being considered.
Thanks, Mr Wood. Any questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour and against, I declare it carried, and we'll have Mr Wood back. That brings us to item 164, Consolidated Dubbo Regional Local Environmental Plan 2021. Can I please have someone move the report of the Director Development and Environment? Thanks, Councillor Etheridge, seconded by Councillor Parker. Any questions or debate, councillors? Sorry, Councillor Ryan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary but significant interest. One of the items deals with a block in Wellington zoned SP3 tourism. The applicants are seeking a potential modification of use for that zoning. It may have implications on land that I own, so I'm going to leave the room and take no part in the discussions on this issue.
Thanks, Councillor Ryan. Thanks, Councillor Grant.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Once again, I'll have to declare a pecuniary significant interest in the matter at hand. The reason behind it is a number of the people who have made submissions I have business dealings with, so I will leave the room on this matter.
Thanks, Councillor Grant.
Thank you.
Any questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour? Against? I declare it carried. We'll have Councillors Ryan and Grant back. Thanks, Councillors Ryan and Grant. That brings us to items 165, short-term rental accommodation. Can I have someone move the report of the Manager, Building and Development Services? Thanks, Councillor Moore. Seconded, Councillor Parker. Now, do you have an amendment, Councillor Moore?
Thanks, Mr Chair.
Oh, sorry, we've got a conflict of interest, I think.
Sorry, Councillor Moore. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to declare a conflict, a non-pecuniary, less than significant. My brother and sister-in-law run a motel in Dubbo. This item might impact that sector, so I'll leave the room and take no part in this discussion. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ryan. Councillor Moore, you've got an amendment?
That the report of the Manager Building and Development Services dated July the 5th, 2021 be noted. And number 2, that Council not pursue the 180-day limit for non-hosted short-term residential accommodation, advise the New South Wales Government of our decision.
Thanks, Councillor Moore. We've got a seconder for that. Councillor Jones, thank you. I'll ask any questions or debate on the amendment. I'll just speak to it briefly. So this is a matter that Council has carefully considered, and I want to thank all the members of the community who sent emails to us and letters to us, and the people that came to speak in public forum. It fundamentally is about services like Airbnb. There's probably other ones. That's the one that I'm familiar with, where people can rent out residential premises on the internet to people who want to stay generally in homes rather than hotels. And there is a state government law or regulation that is able to be applied in local government areas to limit such use to effectively half the year. Staff were put on a very short deadline some time ago to give a response to the state government, and staff took, I think, what we could probably describe as a prudent, conservative and appropriate approach and asked for the regulation to be applied. And people are well aware of our housing shortage issues, and that was looming large, as were certain complaints that I think might have been made, sort of generally speaking, in relation to properties that are being let in this way. Councillors, however, decided to involve themselves in the decision, and I think that was appropriate given the representations made to us. And we have more carefully considered the issue. We've taken advice on the impact on housing availability and so forth. And in summary, the advice was that it's very difficult to quantify a particular impact. And look, in those circumstances where we don't have clear and direct evidence that it will impact on those issues, my preference very much is that we allow the market to operate. We allow people that have been using properties in this way to continue to do so. There's a lot of reasons for that. I won't go into them all, but it's certainly an important part of the housing mix when it comes to tourism, and that is an important thing. I don't think it's going to have a tangible effect on our housing issues. We're moving to deal with our housing issues in other ways, and that's very important work. So that's my contribution, councillors. Any other questions or debate? I'll put that then. All those in favour and against, I declare it carried. And we'll have Councillor Ryan back in. So this is still being put, but it's been amended, yeah? Yep. Item 166. Yep. Who's going to move that? I think someone's got it, yeah. Okay, that brings us to item 166, end of term report. Can I have someone move the report of the Manager Growth Planning? Thanks, Councillor Parker. And a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Diffie. Now, I think we might have an amendment. Thanks, Councillor Jones.
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I would like to move an amendment that due to the local government elections being postponed to the 4th of December 2021, that this matter be deferred to October 2021 to coincide with the final ordinary council meeting of the current council term.
Thanks, Councillor Jones. Have we got a seconder for Councillor Jones's amendment? Thanks, Councillor Grant. Any questions or debate on the amendment? I'll put that then. All those in favour and against, I declare it carried. And the amendment becomes the motion, I think, but I'll put it again. All those in favour, if there's no questions or debate, against, I declare it carried. That brings us to housing availability in the Dubbo Regional LGA, 167. Can I have someone move the report of the Growth Planning Projects Leader Digital Futures? Thanks, Councillor Parker. Have we got a seconder for that? Thanks, Councillor Etheridge. I think we might have an amendment to that. Thanks,
Yes,
Councillor
Mr.
Diffie.
I'd like to move an amendment. 1, that the report of the Growth Planning Project's leader, Digital Futures, dated 8 July 2021 be noted. 2, that a report be provided to Council regarding a work program addressing dwelling diversity in the Dubbo Regional Local Government area at the end of March 2022 Council meeting. And 3, that a workshop be conducted with Council following the December 2021 local government elections to discuss the proposed measures contained in this report and the related growth planning works program.
Thanks, Councillor Diffie. Have we got a second for Councillor Diffie's amendment? Thanks, Councillor Etheridge. Any discussion or debate on the amendment, councillors? Thanks, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just seeking some clarification on point 3, that a workshop be conducted with Council following the December 2021 local government elections. Is that with councillors or with Dubbo Regional Council?
Yeah, I might just refer that to the CEO in terms of the attention of that.
Through Mr Mayor, I'll pass it down to the relevant directors. Mr Stephen.
The objective of that is to do that with councillors to inform a future report, just to ensure we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. I'm just so that's just a typo. Beg your pardon? Sure, certainly. I think that's accurate. Yes.
Yeah, so I'll take that as amended. Yep, in that respect. Questions or debate, councillors, on the amendment? I'll just speak to it very briefly now rather than on the substantive motion. I just want to commend the staff for all their work on this, in particular Stephen Wallace, the relevant director, but also all the staff with him and the CEO. We, of course, had our housing forum and a lot of great ideas came out of it. The issue of housing affordability and supply is not going off the agenda. It's incredibly important, and a lot of the potential responses that are talked about in this report seem very prudent to me. I certainly hope that they proceed, but this is a medium-term issue. It's very appropriate that in the next term of council that workshop occurs and that the reference group is allowed to get up and running so that we have that continual dialogue between important stakeholders in this housing space, because that dialogue has not been occurring during the term of this council, and that is extremely regrettable. But I think we are back on track to have a cooperative process where we deal with these issues with council playing a leadership role, and that is certainly very encouraging. Any other questions or debate, councillors? I'll put the amendment then. All those in favour and against, I declare it carried. I'll put then the substantive motion. Any further questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour and against, I declare it carried. That brings us to 168, naming of thoroughfares associated with Stage 18 Delroy Park, Lot 1500, Lady Baron Circle, Dubbo. Can I please have someone move the report of the LIS and E-Services Coordinator? Thanks, Councillor Grant. Seconded, Councillor Moore. Any questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour? Against? I declare it carried. That brings us to item 169, Dubbo Region Recovery Task Force and Strategy Outcomes. Can I please have someone move the report of the Manager, Economic Development and Marketing? Thanks, Councillor Moore. We've got a seconder. Thanks, Councillor Etheridge. Any questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour? Against? I declare it carried. That brings us to the agenda item 170, Proposed Disabled Parking, Elston Park, Gibbs Street, Dubbo. Can I please have someone move the report of the Senior Traffic Engineer? Thanks, Councillor Diffie. Seconded, Councillor Etheridge. Any questions or debate on this item, councillors? All those in favour? Against? I declare it carried. That brings us to season dates, 21-22, Dubbo Region Aquatic Leisure Centre. Can I please have someone move the report of the Manager of the Leisure Centre? Thanks, Councillor Grant. Have we got a seconder? Have we got a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Diffie. Any questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that there.
Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Diffie.
Sorry. I just have a question through you regarding the Wellington Pool opening hours. I know that last year there was a request from the Wellington Amateur Swimming Club about opening hours being extended for use of the pool for them, in particular on Friday nights for their swim club meets till 7:30. I noticed that there's been an extension for a period of the swim season, but for the beginning and end there hasn't been. But there has been discussions with the Wellington Amateur Swimmer Club, is my understanding, and I was just seeking some further clarification around the opening hours not being the whole season for them, possibly on a Friday night at least.
Through you, Mr Mayor, to the Director of Livability, Mr McAllister.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Certainly there has been community consultation with the Wellington Amateur Swim Club and also through the facility coordinator over there as well. However, what I'll do is I will take that on notice, if I may, and I'll just confirm those hours have been agreed to with the swim club as well.
Thanks, Mr McAllister. Any other questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour? Against? I declare it carried. That brings us to 172, Community Benefit Fund in accordance with Section 356 of the Local Government Act. Can I have someone move the report of the Executive Officer? Thanks, Councillor Jones. Have we got a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Etheridge. Any questions or debate, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour? Against? I declare it carried. That brings us to 173, the 22 to 25 Dubbo Regional Council Disability Inclusion Action Plan Results of Public Exhibition. Can I please have someone move the report of the Community Development Officer? Thanks, Councillor Diffie. We've got a seconder. Thanks, Councillor Etheridge. Any questions or debate on this, councillors? I'll put that then. All those in favour? Against? I declare it carried. That brings us to almost to the conclusion of the meeting, to 174 comments and matters of urgency. Not sure which side we start on this week, but I might start with Councillor Jones, Deputy Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Etheridge. Councillor Grant. No. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm hungry too. Councillor Diffie, thank you. Mr Mayor, councillors, with the onset of COVID in Orange, it's brought home just how difficult things can be, how quickly things can go from looking relatively rosy to extraordinarily difficult for many people. A lot of our businesses locally are doing it tough. Some people on the upside have never had it better, but a lot of people, through no fault of their own, are really struggling. A lot of people have talked to me have asked me what we can do to help support local business. It's difficult for council. We did do a bit of PR around our restaurants and our takeaways when we were in the worst stages of our version of the lockdown last time round. Just flagging that I will be talking to council staff and other councillors about potentially what we can do to assist people when things are difficult like this. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Ryan. Councillor Diffie and Councillor Moore and Councillor Parker. I'll just say a couple of things. I just wanted to acknowledge the postponement of the elections. I know that that's going to cause a lot of disappointment in the community and concern in the community. There's a lot of people with very strong opinions about local government, not least in our region, and people want an election, and I think they want a renewal of local government, and they want to have their say. That's a big, obvious part of the democratic process. But I want to also acknowledge councillors who will continue to serve for 3 months in circumstances where they don't intend to recontest. It is a community service to be on council, and through no choice of their own, that has been extended for 3 months. And I want to acknowledge that for people for whom it was not what they wanted, not what they intended. They thought that they had done their job and done their task. In fact, they probably thought they'd done it a year ago, because this is a second deferral, and you don't get a lot of thanks for being a councillor, but I want to acknowledge all of our service and acknowledge the fact that it's been extended, and just say that I sincerely hope that the elections do proceed on 4 December. It's so important that we have that process of renewal, that the community has their say. And I want to again issue a call to all our residents to consider standing for local government. There's a lot of people out there, I think, who've given it a thought and then put it to one side. I suspect there's people out there that have viewed the events of recent months in our local government area and been a bit turned off local government, to be frank. But I hope that's not the case, and I hope that if something positive comes out of the deferral, it is that people have an opportunity to reconsider and decide to stand, because a strong and diverse range of candidates will give us a strong council going into the future. Thanks, councillors. That is the end of the meeting, because we've done a committee of the whole. There's no further items for consideration. I declare the meeting closed, the time being 7:56 or thereabouts.